acids, etc. Many studies also reveal that this plant is very effective in the treatment of blood pressure, diabetes, and rheumatoid arthritis. The objectives of the present study were to accomplish the organoleptic evaluation of the food products improvised by using leaf powder as an ingredient with the help of semi-trained panels. Secondly, to determine the glycemic response of best selected powder-based products on euglycemic subjects. And finally, to calculate the glycemic index and glycemic load of the products by incremental area under curve. The experimental design. The experimental design was broadly classified into 3 phases. Phase 1 included procurement of plant material and preparation of its powder. Secondly, in the phase 2, product development and organoleptic evaluation was carried out, wherein products namely chapati, lachha paratha, khakra and naan were developed. In phase 3, determination of glycemic response of best selected products on euglycemic subjects was carried out, wherein 30 euglycemic subjects under the age group of 20 to 24 years were selected. Their blood samples were collected at an interval of 30 minutes, and then 60 minutes, then 90 minutes, and finally 120 minutes. Results. The results of the present study were like, firstly, as you can see, 4 different flatbreads, namely chapati, naan, lachha paratha, and khakra, were developed, and Artica Badayoka powder based was incorporated in different proportions of 4%, 6%, and 8%. Mean hedonic scores of the product revealed that the highest mean score of 8 is obtained by chapati, whereas the lowest mean hedonic test score of 5 is obtained by khakra. Mean score showed that the overall acceptability of the chapati was the highest, therefore it was selected as the best recipe. Figure 1 and 2 shows a peak rise in the figure 1 and 2 shows the mean glucose curves after consumption of test recipes in 15 volunteers, wherein it shows a peak rise in the blood glucose concentration where the volunteers were given controlled diet, and when the volunteers were given the test chapati and test naan, there was a gradual decrease in the blood glucose level seen. Similarly, in the figures below, it shows a peak rise in the blood glucose concentration when the volunteers were given standard chapati and standard naan, as compared to when the volunteers were given test chapati and test naan, which showed a low concentration of the blood glucose level. This table depicts the incremental area curve, wherein glycemic index and the glycemic response of the food products were also calculated. According to the data, it was revealed that the GI and the GL of chapati was 4%, because it was the most acceptable product, was 37.30 and 11.36 respectively, which was lower than that of the naan, 4% incorporation, which was 54.77 and 17.66 respectively. Hence it was concluded that chapati was a low glycemic food, whereas naan was the moderately glycemic food. To finally conclude with, the health implications of the GI foods are that they could cause a fast and short-lived rise in the blood glucose level, with the result that one is lacking in energy and might get hungry after eating the food within a short duration time. Thus, the desire to eat will again rise. If this pattern is repeated, there is likelihood of gaining weight as a result of constantly eating. The individual may be prone to the disease or its implications. Thank you.
So we don't exercise thrift in giving a big hand to the presenters. As we saw yesterday that the whole canvas of food science and nutrition is being covered by the participants. So accordingly today also we have presentations from different areas, and we all enjoy this diversity. Questions we can take later on when we mingle there at tea time,
Yes.
Obviously because of difficulties in this time variety. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. I want to answer this.
Yes, there is some genuine question. Yes.
Yeah, ma'am.
Artica dioica is considered to be a very, very noxious weed.
Yeah.
It causes a lot of allergy, and that is why it is not edible.
Yeah, yes,
Even
ma'am.
if you touch it, how did you handle it? And did you not experience any kind of adverse, reaction from the participants?
Ma'am, basically the leaves were taken and they were in the dried form. Sun dried, and then it was made a powder, so that's why we use only 4% concentration.
But if you go through literature, because I teach botany, that is why I know,
Okay.
Artica dioica is not very palatable, and not very edible also. So how will you
Ma'am, but-
justify it? And did you not face any problem while
Not
handling
as such,
it? Because
ma'am.
when I touched it, it caused allergy even to me. I've seen
Okay, but not as such the culture, like the volunteers were not even facing anything, so maybe the variety matters, that's why.
No, Urtica dioica is
Urtica dioica, I've taken it from the Garhwal state.
it is commonly found.
Yeah,
there.
commonly
It
found
has an
there.
antidote also that grows very close to it in the form of species of Steinachia.
Okay.
You take note of this observation.
Yeah, sure, sir.
And in your future work, you pay heed to this.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have the next presentation by Nilakshi Tanima. She is speaking on the topic effect of nutritional counseling on weight loss of individuals visiting a healthcare center and its cost effectiveness. Nilakshi Tanima.
Good morning, everyone. And when we say good morning in the morning to everyone, we feel that what kind of work, something is going on in our mind, that what kind of work we are going to do in a day. Same thing happens when a person starts a research, that which topic should be selected for the research. So from here I got my answer. From these we all go through. Then some false hopes. So there is something wrong, because one side we see that obesity is raising higher and higher day by day, and one side we saw such kind of ads that they claim कि हम आपका weight आप सोच भी नहीं सकते इतनी जल्दी reduce करवा देंगे. But how is it possible? So here comes the topic: effects of nutritional counseling on weight loss of individual visiting a healthcare center and its cost effectiveness. I don't think obesity need any kind of introduction, but to start with, we'll discuss obesity is a serious worldwide epidemic or health epidemic that affects 1 in 4 Americans. As far as we talk about India, about 30 million Indians are obese. Even WHO is very much concerned about it, so they have planned the Global Action Plan for the Prevention and Control of Non-Communicable Diseases by 2013-2020. Now, India, we all know, not very poor but not very rich also. So, economic burden of obesity is also very much. As we can see, economically, obesity costs heavily. You can see the stats in the billions, 152 billions in year. Then, how to treat obesity? We have so many methods, that medications, surgical treatments, mechanical procedures, which we are just discussing about, and nutritional counseling. So, the most important thing is how to set the objectives for such study. First thing was to find out the extent of overweight and obesity, to assess the impact of nutritional counseling on weight loss for the selected sample, to find out the difference between the end results of subjects who receive and did not receive a nutritional counseling, and to find out the significance or association between weight loss and its package cost at healthcare centers. The methodology adopted was locale of the study. The subjects were selected in Delhi city who were enrolled for a healthcare program in Delhi for weight loss irrespective of age and gender. Selection of sample was done randomly. 60 subjects were selected and they are divided into group of experimental group and control group. Collection of data done by the anthropometric measurements, the general profile of the patients, dietary and lifestyle habits, medical information, and the selection of package according to their condition of obesity and overweight. Then the statistical analysis has been done. Coefficient correlation, t-test and other tests were applied and data is sorted. Nutritional counseling includes balanced diet, behavior modification, stress management, water intake and lifestyle modifications. Results revealed that prevalence of obesity was found so high in both the groups at 98% and 77% in control and experimental groups respectively. Then a high significance between the end results of control and experimental group were found. In this case, the H1, the hypothesis was true. Then there is no association found between the package cost and end results of weight loss programs as claimed by the centers from years, because they said कि आप जितना ज़्यादा पैसा देंगे उतना ज़्यादा weight loss होगा, but ऐसा नहीं है. The most important thing which we revealed is improvement in lifestyle, sleep, medical conditions were there. To conclude about this, present study concluded that though prevalence of obesity is high, but the reason behind it is that people do not take nutritional counseling. Instead of this, they prefer some quick fix methods. But if they take the regular counseling of a dietitian, definitely the results will be better. And the study has the similarity with other studies done by Degenio and Kodke. They said that frequency of meeting a dietitian improves not only the weight loss results but also helps in improving the overall health status of an individual. Future studies can be done with the time factor also and the biochemical and clinical parameters in consideration. Thank you so much. Ma'am, they were on the different packages, and twice in a week the counseling was given. Twice in a week.
Good morning, everyone. Before I start my presentation, I would like to clear here that this is not a research article. This is a review article, not a research paper. I prepared this to create awareness among especially UG students in our college and students that have non-home science and non-science backgrounds, so that they should also start living a healthy lifestyle. So this is it is a very basic presentation. Okay. The topic is the invisible epidemic of globalization, non-communicable diseases, also known as a lifestyle disease. I will not take much more in detail because we have discussed many more things. Just to include here the topics that has not been covered, like mental health have been included by WHO as a non-communicable disease recently. Now, how this globalization has been affecting the increasing incidence of non-communicable disease. It has been causing the rising in the risk factors of non-communicable diseases by the changing in the work pattern and the consumption. So this is what I will take in detail later. And another thing next is that indirectly it has impact on the national economies and health. How come this? Now, current economic and government policies are such that these are favoring non-health things and they are ignoring the things that are good for our health. In some countries, certain policies are there, like providing subsidies for mass production of processed food, and tobacco revenue generated in countries from a government-owned tobacco industry. Likewise, these factors, these are creating troubles and increasing the incidence of non-communicable diseases. And again, these points were discussed yesterday, in non-communicable diseases, which were known as a disease of the affluence or of the rich people. Now, due to the change in the lifestyle, they have made their targets to the developing countries, and as developing countries prosper, these non-communicable diseases, they are a midway product. They are along with the products of their, they have come as a midway path for their product development of in the developing countries because of the rising environmental pollution and the unhealthy lifestyles. Next is the targets, all age groups, people, and from all regions, they are the targets. They are the vulnerable to non-communicable diseases. Now coming to the risk factors. Now transition of from infectious disease to non-communicable diseases in middle and low income groups is due to is driven by a number of risk factors. Risk factors that are indicative of the economic development, like a shift from a traditional diet to a Western diet that is rich in fat, salt, and sugar, processed foods, and changed in the cultural patterns, like increasing women using alcohol consumption and smoking, and likewise. And these practices, these show up in individuals as raised blood pressure, increased blood glucose and cholesterol levels, and increase in weight. Now coming to the tobacco use, smoking, we all know that they have been creating hazardous effect due to mortality due to number of diseases like cancers, chronic respiratory diseases, heart diseases. Moreover, that exposure of people, exposure of pregnant women, children and non-pregnant adults to second-hand smoke in their houses or at the public places. This is what it is more causing harmful effects, especially to the respiratory system, causing adverse childbirths, and also some diseases same or type which people get when they are exposed to active smoking. Now, alcohol consumption, as we all know, is associated with a number of diseases, especially it has an impact on our neuropsychiatric system. That is what is important here, besides causing a number of diseases. Now, coming to the unhealthy diet and weight management. Now, nutrition transition has inclined people's liking due to the change in the lifestyle towards adoption of the Western diet. And as we all know that food patterns, they have been associated with a number of diseases like cancer, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, along with their intermediate outcomes like hyperglycemia, insulin resistance and overweight. So this is what we have been talking about, and this is the area which needs to be changed among our adults, college going girls, that they should shift from this unhealthy diet practices. बाकी की चीजें सब मिथ है, as we have been discussing कि lose weight in इतने amount of package and this is dieting, or that is not. If you come to the healthy diet, that is what is required. Then another thing is the physical inactivity. It has been causing number of problems in people, including joint degeneration, predisposes to osteoporosis, and then including the incidence of this anxiety, depressive symptoms and lack of concentration among girls and students, then poor sleep and stress. These all lead to unhealthy practices, like people smoke more, eat less well. When they don't have a proper sleep, they are less active, and all this then it leads to a vicious cycle from non-communicable diseases to unhealthy lifestyle and unhealthy lifestyles to non-communicable diseases, and so. Now this is what the message I would like to give to all of the people here, that stop smoking, switch off over to healthy diet, exercise, check your stress, control diabetes and monitor blood pressure. Thank you.
You have any query from you?
Thank you.
Before we have the next presentation, I have one thing to share with you all, and to me it looks sometimes certain facts they come up and they sound stranger than fiction. So one fact I have shared with somebody in Canada is that US government has accepted that cholesterol is not a nutrient of concern, and it has lifted all ban on high cholesterol products. And there's a long message that this US Department of Agriculture, the department has cleared this cholesterol of all notoriety, and at the same time all blame it has put on sugars, especially the refined sugars. So the detailed reports will come, and there is nothing like bad cholesterol, good cholesterol, and then it says that the statins, the drugs which people use for lowering cholesterol, and the report says that statins, they in fact increase heart disease, and they are not to be taken at all. So again, it's if they are facts, they are stranger than fiction. We have the next presentation by Dr. Parvati Singh. The topic is prevalence of diabetes in adolescent girls in urban areas of Allahabad district. She is not present. Then we have Poonam Singh, health effects and prevention of childhood obesity. Again missing.
No, she's not.
She's there. You know, in cricket there is one phenomenon, time out. If the batsman doesn't reach the wicket in 1 minute, then the batsman is given out. So you hurry up.
Good morning to all. I'm Poonam Singh presenting a paper entitled as Health Effects and Prevention of Childhood Obesity. Now comes towards the introduction part. We all know about obesity, that what is childhood obesity is. It is the accumulation of excess amount of body fat in adipose tissues, and we know that India has become the third largest country with obese children. We have around 15 million children that are overweight. This is childhood obesity. Obesity threatens the health of today's child, and such to extent that it disturbs the psychological factors also. There are so many methods to measure childhood obesity. The most common method is the BMI, that stands for Body Mass Index. We can measure children's obesity by having the weight and height. That is, the formula is weight in kilograms divided by height in meter square. After that, we could go for this table that if child has less than 5th percentile, then he or she will be considered that underweight, and if the range will between the 5th to 84th percentile, then healthy weight. If between 85th to 94th percentile, that is overweight, and obese more than 95th percentile. There is different percentile for both boys and girls. Now coming towards the national obesity data, this data clearly shows that obesity is increasing day by day. It has been increased by 47% from 1980 to 2015. Now let's talk about the childhood obesity and physical activity. What does physical activity means? Physical activity means that bodily movements that is produced by contraction of skeletal muscle and that sustainably increase energy expenditure. Activities for children should be fun and age appropriate. In childhood, physical activity habits, particularly during growth periods including puberty, have a long-lasting impact on bone health. The World Health Organization (WHO) recommended 60 minutes of workout, that is moderate intensity workout, to children. Now coming towards the causes of childhood obesity, there are some causes of childhood obesity. Let's say socioeconomic status, built environment, physical inactivity, dietary trends, etc. Coming towards the health effects of childhood obesity, the first one is the type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes usually appears in adults, but recently more children are being diagnosed with conditions, some as young as 7 years. A surveillance program of children under 17 in UK found that 95% of those diagnosed with type 2 diabetes were 98%. That is not small. And respiratory problems, second. That is, a recent meta-analysis concluded that overweight and obese children are at 40 to 50% increased risk of asthma, that is asthmatic problems. Next is obstructive sleep apnea. A recent review on childhood obesity and obstructive sleep apnea reported that prevalence of obesity among obese children shows that there are 60% children who are suffering from this disorder. Next is cardiovascular disease risk factor, that is, in US 70% of obese children are suffering from this disease, let's say high blood pressure or high cholesterol level. Next is psychological risk. Factors associated with mental health problems in obese children include lower level of physical activity, low self-esteem, body dissatisfaction, and weight-based teasing. That is most common practice in schools. Musculoskeletal problems. Excess weight can lead to increased stress on musculoskeletal systems. The most common orthopedic problem in children include tibia varus, that is bow-legged, that is postural deformity. Next come towards the high blood pressure. This is also cardiovascular disease. Menstrual problem, being overweight may cause a girl to reach puberty at an early age and also may contribute to menstrual irregularities later in life. Last but not the least is liver problem. Fatty liver disease, that is a gastroesophageal reflux, is the problem that is associated with childhood obesity. Now coming towards the prevention of childhood obesity, the first one is the food, nutrition and childhood obesity. Second one is childhood eating behavior and obesity. Most of the children are doing breakfast skipping and indulging in more junk food. Family interaction involving meals and nutrition. Parental control of child nutrient intake. Parents are responsible for type of food presented to children. Portion size offered. The majority of children, that is 1 to 2 year old children, consume dessert, ice cream, candy once per day. In contrast, only 1 of 10 consume a green vegetable daily. Next is physical education, physical activity and sedentary behavior. Next, partnering with parents to prevent childhood obesity, regular assessment, that is monitoring regularly, and healthy lifestyle habits, regular physical education classes that will involve physical activities. So this is the obesity treatment recommendation given by the American Academy of Pediatrics. At last, it would be concluded that the overweight and obese children and teens should reduce the rate of weight gain while allowing normal growth and development. So according to this review, that schools play a particularly critical role by establishing a safe and supportive environment with policies and practices that support healthy behavior. School also provide opportunities for students to learn about and practice healthy eating and physical activity behaviors. This is front page of a magazine. These are the references. Thank you.
Research entitled A Randomized Double-Blind Placebo-Controlled Trial of Eagle Marmalade on Glycemic Control in Type 2 Diabetes. Its introduction. Diabetes mellitus is a syndrome characterized by chronic hyperglycemia and disturbance of carbohydrate fat protein metabolism associated with absolute or relevant deficiency in insulin secretion. As we all know, according to WHO reports, it's the 4th leading cause of death in almost developing countries. Today there is a lot of medicine which can treat the diabetes. Now, why we need a herbal approach for diabetes management? There is some reason, that's why I do this study. Nowadays in human chemical resistance has developed due to indiscriminate use of synthetic drugs. Many currently drugs are expensive, having side effects, and major setback to their continued uses is developed resistancy. Therefore, we need a herbal approach to treat diabetes. The Eagle Marmalade in India has 45,000 medicinal plants. Out of these, eagle plant is a popular medicinal plant in Ayurveda. The family of eagle marmalade is Rutaceae. It's only the member which have gene eagle. It's a cylindrical shaped tree. It have aromatic fruit. It have aroma in leaves also. The medical property of this plant has been described in Ayurveda. In fact, as per Church, no drug has been longer better appreciated by inhabitants of India than the bee. Objectives: to assess the efficacy of eagle marmalade leaf on hyperglycemia of newly diabetic patients, to study a change and carry out follow-up of patients after 6 months of intervention with the help of diet, anthropometric measurements and biochemical analysis. Study design. The technique was prospective randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial. Duration was 10 months. Locale was diabetic Care Research Center, SPS Medical College, Bikaner. The selection of Eagle Marmelos leaf. The leaf was procured from a local market in a single lot after identification by the expert of Dravya Guna Department, NIA. Preparation of Gansatva. Gansatva is the concentration form which can be used if the amount is so much. That's why I prepared Gansatva for the consumption. Gansatva was prepared as procedure given in Sarandhar Samhita. Eagle Marmelos leaves was shaved, dried and crushed into chorus leaf powder. Then water was added and mild heat was given. Then this liquid form is converted to semi-solid form. It was kept 60 degrees centigrade for 72 hours. Then the solid preparation was prepared, that called Gansatva. Sample size of the study was 200 diabetic subjects. These are the inclusion-exclusion criteria. Development of tool. In order to obtain information about the subjects, questionnaire was developed. The interview schedule includes general information like sex, address, phone number, social economic status. Information about the subject and the disease includes chronological age, personal habits, management of diabetes, etc. This is the diagrammatic representation of the methodology. 200 diabetic subjects were selected. Then their general information was collected. Anthropometric for nutritional status assessment, anthropometric measurements was taken out. In anthropometric measurements, weight, height for weight, waist hip ratio was taken out. In dietary pattern, 24 recall method was used. In biochemical assessment, fasting blood sugar and HbA1c was assessed. For intervention trial, these 200 patients were divided into 4 groups randomly. Each group have 50 subjects. The medication offered to the patients were given in identical packs bearing a distinctive code number. Depending on the specific code number, patients either received 250 mg dose, 600 mg dose, 900 mg dose, or it may be placebo. Follow-up was taken on 3rd and 6th month of the trial. For follow-up of the efficacy of Eagle Marmelos, anthropometric measurement, dietary and biochemical analysis was carried out. The dose of Eagle Marmelos and placebo capsules. The dose of 250 mg capsules contain 1.9 gram Gansatva, 600 mg dose contains 4.5 gram Gansatva, 950 dose of capsule contains 7.1 gram Gansatva. For placebo group, 250 mg of green gram powder was filled. These capsules are similar in the shape and size, so the biasness of psychological biasness of the subjects were reduced. Patients were asked to take 1 capsule daily for 6 months. Glycosylated hemoglobin status. Prior of the study, elevated level of the subjects were 52.50%, where during it reduced to 35% and after it was 23%. It clearly shows that the Eagle Marmelos supplementation was effective. If we see about the prevalence of diabetes, the table 8 presents the percentage distribution of the subjects by fasting blood glucose level. If we talk about the slightly elevated level, prior it's 1%, during it's 18.50%, and after it's 43.5%. So it shows that continually the serious elevated level was decreased, and by the effect of supplementation, slightly elevated level was increased. Graph 2, HbA1c level of the study. The mean values clearly indicates that the supplementation is very effective. The mean values of group B was 8.6%. During it reduced, and finally after supplementation it reached to 6.69. If we talk about the group C, the mean value was 8.56, it reduced to 7.98%, and after the study it's 7.29%. So it indicates that HbA1c was well treated
You
by the
have
supplement.
far over exceeded the time. It's high time you conclude.
Okay, sir, just a moment. This is the table which shows that how the supplement effective for the treatment of diabetes. We can say in group C, 72% have decreased their allopathic drug consumption. Conclusion: the result of the present investigation suggests that Eagle Marmalade supplement, biologically active, produce a marked improvement in blood sugar level. In the study, 600 mg dose was most effective for all the parameters. Therefore, 600 mg dose of Eagle Marmalade Gansatus was recommended for the controlling and management of hyperglycemia in type 2 diabetes. Thank you.
Apart from your supplementation.
Ma'am, actually, I just take recall what they are doing, what they are taking in their diet, and then I just counsel them a balanced diet. I'm not forcing them कि you should take. I just want कि what they are doing, it is good or not, it is beneficial for their diet, and so I just counsel them. And apart from that, I just find out कि whether my supplementation is effective or not.
They were not taking any other medicine.
They are taking allopathic drugs. That's why I show you the table also कि what before supplementation what they are taking and how much they reduce in their allopathic drugs after my supplementation.
Myself, Renuka Sharma. My topic is risk factors of chronic degenerative diseases in adult men 30 to 60 years age group in residence of Byawar. The main objective of the research is to assess the general health and nutritional status, to determine the prevalence of risk factors of chronic degenerative diseases, especially coronary heart disease. Methods and materials were used for the following headings. First of all, design of the experiment. Field studies on general information, health background, clinical examination, anthropometry, physical activity, and food consumption patterns were carried out on all the 90 subjects. Measurement of blood pressure was done on all the subjects, all the 90 subjects. For selection of subjects, the limitation of time, utility, and suitability of the subject, it was decided to select 90 adult men between 30 to 60 years of age group. This representative samples of adult men were selected for employees of educational institutions, banks, executive officers, and medical officers, businessmen. The men who met the selection criteria and were willing to participate in the studies were selected by convening samples. Development of performa. Performa were developed for the collection of information by oral questionnaire method. Performa developed to obtain individual information on health and medical history, risk factors of degenerative diseases, physical activity, and dietary habits. Selection of performa were divided into three parts. First of general information. Information about the subjects pertaining to age, religion, marital status, educational qualification, occupation, monthly income, and number of family members were posted. Specific information, medical history, general health record was made by drawing information of past illness, if any, and common complaints of the subject. Other specific information, risk factor studies are family history, socioeconomic status, smoking habits, physical activity, obesity, hypertension, diabetes mellitus, etc. Nutrition assessment of the subjects were assessed through anthropometric measurement of blood pressure, and dietary survey. The techniques employed in the survey were height, weight, body mass index, mid-upper arm circumference, chest circumferences, abdomen circumference, waist and waist ratio. Clinical examination will also done, blood pressure measurement were also be done. For dietary information, data regarding the food consumption and nutrient intake were gathered through oral questionnaire method. Question focusing on general dietary habits, type of cooking or use, total consumption of fats and oils per month use, daily milk and milk product consumption, frequency of tea, coffee intake. Food consumed by sources of nutrients by the subject was recorded using 24-hour record method, 3 consecutive days. Nutrient intake, the different food items consumed by the subjects were categorized in the presented food groups and then it was compared with the RT. The findings of the study is, the figure shows the socio-economic status of the subject. The figure A shows the general information. At the time of study, maximum subjects were married and they belongs to joint family and they belong. Maximum of the subjects were Hindus and the remaining were Muslims, Sikh and Christians. The income group was also, monthly income group was also observed. Maximum of the subjects were found in 20,000 to 30,000 per month. History of past illness or chronic degenerative disease of subjects were observed. It was noted that 7% were suffering from hypertension, 6% suffering from diabetes mellitus, 3 for heart disease, 4 subjects for overweight, 7 subjects for overweight and 4 subjects for renal disease. Only liver disease and asthma were found only 1 subject. Personal habits were also noted. Smoking, 89% were not and have no habits of smoking. 33% have habit of chewing tobacco and only 13% subjects consuming alcohol. Type of stress among the subjects was studied. Maximum number of the subjects, 86% were found stress, both feminine and occupational. Only 2% subjects have no stress, they were calm and relaxed. This figure shows the nutritional profile. The state of nutritional profile determined by anthropometric clinical examination, dietary gain and physical activity. The figure shows the anthropometric parameters of the subject. Dietary information regarding food intake was collected through 24-hour recall method for 3 consecutive days and nutrient was for calculating using by food consumption table. Maximum subjects were vegetarians and they consume 3 meals daily. Generally they skip, 77% of the subjects skipped habits of skipping meals. They skip generally evening tea. The reasons for skipping of meals was weight conscious and too much workload. This figure shows the comparison of percent nutrient intake by adult men with ICMR recommended assessment. In all the 3 groups, it was found that maximum subjects were consumed low quantity of cereals, pulses, green leafy vegetables, alcohol, sugar and jaggery, and maximum amount of consuming milk and milk products, other vegetables, fruits and fats and oil, compared with ICMR recommendation.
You rush up and conclude.
At the last, it may be concluded that according to general and specific information, no significant difference was found in 3 groups of subjects aged 30 to 40, 40 to 50 and 50 to 60 years. Heredity affect the causes of degenerative disease in some subjects. Anthropometric data revealed that the difference in the mean anthropometric variance in 3 groups was statistically insignificant. Dietary habits and practices of the subjects revealed that fruit, fats and oil and milk products consumption was very high. The result illustrates the dietary habits, physical activity, personal habits of the subject. Hence we can say excess of energy tends to rich in fat and free sugars, fruits and sugars type of diet has close and constant relationship between chronic degenerative diseases. Calories should be sufficient to maintain ideal body. Thank you.
In Dr. Richa Chaturvedi, we have the next presenter speaking on factors affecting response versus non-response in subjects undergoing comprehensive weight reduction program.
Good morning, everyone. The topic of my presentation today is a study on association of weight loss with related factors leading to response versus non-response in subjects undergoing comprehensive weight reduction program in Jaipur city, and this was the main objective of our study. Excess body weight is the sixth most important risk factor contributing to the health burden of the world. Each 5 kg per meter square increase in BMI is associated with about 30% higher overall mortality. Obesity-related diseases have been found to increase chances of dying and lessen life years by 0.20 to 11.7 years depending on gender, race, BMI classification and age. The dramatic increase in obesity prevalence observed in the last decade seems attributable mainly to environmental changes promoting the intake of energy-dense foods and or reduced physical activity due to higher number of sedentary jobs, different transportation systems and increasing urbanization. The rationale of this study was successful completion of an obesity management program has been found to be a challenge for individuals. Most of the time, subjects participating in weight loss regimes are not able to reduce weight. Treatment and management of obesity has been found to be a complex issue. It has been suggested that only 20% of subjects undergoing weight loss programs can achieve a certain degree of long-term success. While some people succeed at adopting and sustaining behaviors associated with weight control, while others do not, undergoing similar treatment programs remains largely unknown. The present study was therefore undertaken to identify such factors which may help in predicting success or failure in achieving targeted weight reduction goals by individuals. The methodology which was applied for this study was, locale of the study were commercial weight reduction centers and gymnasium of Jaipur city, offering comprehensive weight reduction programs to individuals. The sampling technique was purposive sampling method in 2 steps. In step 1, we selected the centers. In step 2, we selected the samples. 624 subjects were screened for BMI and age. The inclusion criteria of our comprehensive study was age 20 to 60 years, BMI 24 equal to or more than 25 kg per meter square, willingness to participate in this study. In the pre-treatment assessment, we did nutritional status, physical activity, cardiovascular fitness, stress and stress assessment. Nutritional status included anthropometry, biochemical parameters. The intervention was for 60 days, and we had in the commercial weight reduction center 50 males and 52 females, and in gymnasium 50 males and 48 females. The post-treatment assessment for all the above parameters was taken, and responders and non-responders were classified in weight loss equivalent to or more than 3.6 kgs, which was according to the NHLBI guidelines. The intervention for the commercial weight reduction center was, they had to visit the center thrice in a week, and each session was for 45 minutes, which included a celotherm, which is a heating machine, which is said to improve body temperature and peripheral blood circulation, and EMS, which for 30 minutes. Gymnasium, the subjects who were visiting gymnasium had to daily visit the center, and each exercise session was for 60 minutes, in which warm-up for 10 to 15 minutes and cardiorespiratory workout for 3 times in a week and muscle strengthening 3 times in a week. There was a trainer who was advising these exercises to the subjects, and he also advised 1 day rest from physical activity. The dietary and nutritional counseling was done by the investigator, that is myself, and the nutritional guidelines were followed as per NHLBI guidelines. Low calorie diet, not less than 1000 calories for women and not less than 1200 calories for men. Statistical analysis was done, and then response and non-response were classified according to NHLBI guidelines. The main results related to weight loss in our study were demographic profile and weight reduction. We found that marital status, in females, homemakers versus professionals, menstrual history of the females, and comorbidities were significantly affecting weight reduction. When we saw lean percentage of the subjects, hemoglobin levels, TSH levels, change in physical activity level, and stress. All affected were correlated to weight reduction positively or negatively. Hemoglobin was found to be more strongly correlated in males with weight loss. The meal pattern and weight loss. Vegetarians were found to have a better weight reduction. Skipping meals was found to negatively affect skipping meals. The chi-square association was very high. The smoking and alcoholism also found to have an adverse effect on weight reduction. The dietary and nutrient factors which affected weight loss. The dietary factors were fruits, green leafy vegetables, milk and other vegetables, macronutrient, protein, fat, carbohydrate, total dietary fiber, total energy intake, the micronutrient intake, calcium, zinc, riboflavin, niacin, folic acid and vitamin B12 had a correlation, weak but statistically significant correlation. The analysis revealed T3 levels independently affected weight loss. Macronutrient composition of diet resulted in 24.66% variability in weight loss and increased to 42.13 with stress and physical activity. The conclusion was various components of nutritional status and psychosocial attributes significantly affected weight loss. Thank you.
From Manasali University, and the title of my presentation is Effectiveness of Different Herbs in Treating Type 2 Diabetes. Diabetes mellitus is a disease where the body's cells can't use glucose properly due to lack of or resistance to the hormone insulin produced by the pancreas. Medicinal plants may play an important role in the treatment of diabetes, especially in the developing countries due to their cost effectiveness. Cinnamomum verum, which is commonly known as dalchini, has been reported to have remarkable pharmacological effects in the treatment of type 2 diabetes. Second is Gymnema sylvestre, which is commonly known as gulmar, is traditionally Ayurvedic remedy for the treatment of diabetes. Muraya kunegi, known as curry patta plant, has been reported to possess antioxidative, cytotoxic activity, antimicrobial, anti-diabetic and cholesterol reducing properties. Objectives of my study is to assess the nutrient composition and phytochemical screening of cinnamon bark, Gymnema sylvestre and Muraya kunegi. Second, to see the effect of supplementation water extract of cinnamon bark, Gymnema sylvestre leaves and Muraya kunegi bark on different parameters of diabetes and oxidative stress in diabetic rats. Experimental design, which consists three phases. First phase is chemical analysis, which is collection of cinnamon, Gymnema sylvestre and Muraya kunegi from an authentic source, and preparation of water extract, powder nutrient and phytochemical analysis. Animal experimentation, pre-supplementation, animal selection, randomization of rats in 8 groups on the basis of body weight. First group is control non-diabetic group, control diabetic group CN1, 75 mg per kg body weight cinnamon water extract, CN2, 50 mg per kg body weight cinnamon water extract, GS1, 75 mg per kg body weight Gymnema sylvestre water extract, GS2 is 50 mg per kg body weight Gymnema sylvestre water extract, MK1 75 mg per kg body weight Muraya kunegi water extract, and MK2 50 mg Muraya kunegi water extract. Induction of diabetes through streptozotocin, collection of blood sample, preparation of serum and biochemical analysis were done. In post supplementation, collection of blood samples, sacrifices of animals, preparation of serum, liver homogenate and PMS, and then biochemical analysis was done. Third phase is data analysis. Results is revealed that cinnamon has high content of carbohydrate, calcium and iron, and Gymnema sylvestre rich in carbohydrate, mineral ash and root fiber, Muraya kunegi rich in carbohydrate, calcium and iron. All phytochemicals are present in cinnamon, Gymnema sylvestre and Muraya kunegi, except tannins are not present in Muraya kunegi. There was a significant difference in pulsing blood glucose and glycated hemoglobin in all experimental groups, except Muraya kunegi has no significant decrease in glycated hemoglobin. Group CN1, GS1, GS2 and MK1 has significant decrease in SGOT and MK1, and MK2 has significant decrease in SGPT as compared to group CD. There was a significant decrease in the levels of serum TB or RS and in all experimental groups, and no significant decrease in the levels of uric acid except group MK1. There was a significant decrease in the levels of reduced glutathione in group CN1, CN2 and MK1 and MK2. All experimental groups were effective to reduce oxidative stress and increase the activity of antioxidant enzymes as compared to group CD. Conclusion: 75 mg per kg dose cinnamon powder was more effectively in fasting blood glucose and glycated hemoglobin than other two. 75 mg per kg dose of Muriac Negi was more effective than Gymnema sylvestre and cinnamon, whereas Gymnema sylvestre was least effective on liver enzymes SGOT and SGPT. Muriac Negi was more effective on serum TBRS and uric acid. As compared to Gymnema sylvestre and Muriac Negi, cinnamon was more effective on reduced glutathione levels. On tissue levels, all the three were effective to reduce oxidative stress and to increase the activity of antioxidant enzymes. Thank you, sir. Glutathione, uric acid, reduced glutathione, catalase or superoxidative dismutase.
Jaipur City, Rajasthan.
Good morning all. As we know, the prevalence of hypertension has increased dramatically in developing countries, including India, which is a leading risk factor for cardiovascular diseases and further for premature deaths globally. Salt, a major source of sodium, is so ubiquitous in our food items, is a major risk factor for the elevated blood pressure. So, to overcome this rising burden of hypertension, sodium reduction is probably the most feasible lifestyle intervention. But before proceeding with the public health efforts to reduce salt intake, it is necessary to find out the actual salt intake in the normal population. Thus, the study was conducted to assess the sodium consumption of the normotensive subjects by using 24 hours urinary sodium excretion along with the reported dietary sodium intake. For the purpose, 30 healthy, young and middle-aged subjects was identified by convenience sampling and potential participants were selected on the basis of following inclusion and exclusion criteria. General information was collected by using a structured questionnaire. Nutritional assessment was carried out by conducting basic anthropometric measurements. Dietary intake was assessed by using 24 hours dietary recall for 3 days including 1 holiday. 24 hours urinary sodium excretion was carried out, which has been advocated by WHO as the gold standard method to assess the sodium consumption in the normal population. Blood pressure of the subject was taken by using the automatic digital BP monitor. Now results: out of 30 subjects, 10 were males and 20 were females with a mean age of 32 and 31 years respectively. All of the subjects were representing upper middle socioeconomic status. Regarding food habits, 7 males and 16 females were found to be vegetarian. Females showed strong family history regarding hypertension and other heart diseases as compared to males as depicted from the given data. Here we have the anthropometric measurements of the subjects. Now, main finding of our study, the study indicated the higher urinary excretion of sodium, that is near about 4500 milligrams per day in males and near about 4200 milligrams per day in females as compared to the recommended values. A non-significant difference was found between 24 hours urinary sodium excretion of males and females. When sodium intake was assessed in their dietary intake, it was found to be 3900 and 3300 milligrams per day in males and females respectively, which is less than the 24 hours urinary excreted sodium. A positive linear but non-significant correlation was found between 24 hours urinary sodium excretion and the reported dietary sodium intake, as we can see in this scattered diagram. When mean sodium consumption from the discriminatory salt was calculated, it was found to be 2700 milligrams per day. It would mean that 74% of the sodium was directly coming from the salts in the regional kitchens. If you assume that the sodium eliminated in the urine comes from salt only, then this excretion would correspond to the salt intake of 11.36 grams per day in males and 10.54 grams per day of salt in males and 10.8 grams of salt in the population as a whole. As per the sources of sodium in the diet, salt was found as the chief source of sodium, adding during cooking as well as at the table. Addition of salt during kneading of dough for chapatis in curds, chaach, raitas, in nibu pani, sprinkling salt on salads and fruits were some of the practices that enhancing the use of salt in the population. High consumptions of chutneys, pickles, papads, Bikaneri bhujiyas, along with a regular meal was one of the main reasons that rising the burden of salt in the population. Local available foods like kachori, samosas, pakoras, pani puris, aloo tikkis, etc. was consuming by the subjects along with the salty chutneys and sauces. 70% of the subjects reported the consumption of these snacks in varying frequencies. Blood pressure of the subject was found to be normal. Systolic and diastolic blood pressure were found correlated positively but non-significantly with the 24-hour urinary sodium excretion. At last, it is concluded that the result of the study indicated a high sodium consumption in the region. There is a need to meaningful strategy to reduce salt intake, and it must involve public education and awareness to change the consumption pattern. Indeed, such a campaign is underway in India, promoted by some authorities. The result of the present study may be useful as it provides baseline data regarding the sodium consumption in the Jaipur region. Thank you.